call this meeting to order. It's actually we have 9:05. Dallas, could you do a roll, please?
Commissioner Thayer.
Here.
Commissioner Richardson.
Present.
Commissioner Wilcox.
Here. All right, at this time, can I get Mr. Harris to do a prayer, please?
Heavenly Father, we come to thy presence in prayer. We are thankful for this beautiful day and the opportunities that are before us. We thank you for our great nation, our great county. We just pray that everything is said and done this day will bring honor to you. Bless, guide, and direct in everything that's happened today, and we'll thank you for it. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Sure. Join me in the pledge.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have a posted agenda at this time, and I don't believe there's any changes, so I'd like to entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Consent agenda, we have a number of items.
I move that we accept the consent agenda as posted.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, do we have any reports from elected officials, staff? Anybody, do any comments? All right, moving right along. We have open public comment on this portion of the agenda. Now this comment section is provided for individuals who are not planning on commenting on any items under discussion or action, because we have a specific area for comment at those areas. So if there's any, and also dealing with any in the open session. So if there's any comments unrelated to that, could you please come on up and have your comments, because I have quite a list here. So, and most of them are related to the wind farm, which we will get to in a bit. Is there any unrelated comments? Citizens? No? Okay. Next item, let's get to discussion items. Let's go to how this will go. First, we'll request info, then the board will discuss the items. Then we'll open it to public discussion on each item discussed. So as we go to the first one, we've got the public trustees report. Good.
Excuse me, could you, is that microphone on? I can't really hear you.
There you go, Rick.
Rick Pettit, Elbert County Public Trustee, giving the fourth quarter report, which is being presented so it can be accepted by the Elbert County Commissioners. And basically, it just shows the expenses and income for my working account. Also shows the expenses and income for the Fund 35. And also shows the amount for my escrow account, which I have to have 1 year's balance in per statute. Any questions on that part of the report before I just go over a few of the statistics? Okay. Just some of the statistics showing versus 2015 versus 2016. We opened 33 foreclosures in 2015 and 43 in 2016. We had 27 sales in 2015 and 15 sales in 2016. And the deeded properties in 2015 were 29 and 2016 14. And their withdrawals were essentially the same. But what I've been seeing is we had more foreclosures that were opened last year, but we're getting a lot more foreclosures that are getting withdrawn, which I think people are getting their properties sold rather than going through the full foreclosure process. But it is about a 30% increase in the amount of foreclosures that we started last year. But compared to 2011, when I started, we had over 300 foreclosures, so it is significantly dropped down. The other thing is, for releases for the fourth quarter, we had 615 versus 595, and to me that's sort of an indication where sales and refis and that are going, and the releases and staying about the same. So, I think the sales matter. We know Bill has been doing pretty good in Elbert County. And also Fund 35, which just shows that we're going to transfer $19,396 into the general fund, which was the excess funds in Fund 35 that are to be transferred at the end of the year. Any questions on the report?
No, I don't. This is due up at the end of this month.
What's that?
This report going forward is...
There really isn't any time frame. I just have to present the quarterly report, and then it's accepted by the commissioners.
Thank you.
So there is no time frame.
Thanks, Rick.
Okay.
Thank you. Any discussion here?
For me?
Okay. Any public comment on the public trustees report? At this point, can I entertain a motion to move it to the action items?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think in the future it's relatively straightforward. It could probably move to consent in the future quarters. But for now, I move that we just accept this report as provided.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Dallas, if we move it to number 5?
If I understood the motion, it was to accept at this point.
Okay, we're good? All right, thank you. All right, the next one on the agenda is a formal proposal from Kansas State Bank for lease of vehicles in the Sheriff's Office. County Manager Ed Eman.
Good morning, Commissioners. Ed Eman, County Manager. In front of you today is a proposal from Kansas State Bank for the replacement of 6 vehicles within the Sheriff's Office. And our current program includes taking our existing vehicles. We purchase new vehicles, lease purchase new vehicles. We put those brand new vehicles into the Sheriff's Office or into law enforcement, and then we take the vehicles with 75 to 100,000 miles and we rotate them into county pool or other county departments. We budget in the other departments to pay the Blue Book value for those vehicles as they're passed along, and then we replace with new. So this is just purely our replacement program for 6 vehicles in the Sheriff's Office. We have an interest rate of around 3% for a 5-year term on this note, and it's pretty straightforward lease agreement.
At the end of the lease, we own them?
At the end of the lease, we own them. And there is no prepayment penalty. We've actually been in a position a couple of times to retire the leases early.
And then if we do own them, do we have a program for retiring them, selling them?
We do. There's actually 3 steps into our vehicle replacement program. The first step after initial use in law enforcement and emergency response is they move on to, if it's a passenger car, it moves on to a pool vehicle, which is utilized throughout all the departments and checked out by any one department within the county. If it's a pickup, we spec these vehicles so that we anticipate where they're going to go in their next life. And so we spec pickups that will be utilized in road and bridge and other functions as well. So that's the second step. And once they reach, they start costing absorbent amount of money to repair and maintain. We retire them and they go onto a site, we sell, we surplus those vehicles, and they go onto a site called governmentbid.com, and they're sold basically at auction online. Thanks.
Thank you. You're on the next one too.
The next one is the same thing, but this is a replacement vehicle for the coroner's office. And this is a specialty vehicle, so we have to specify a vehicle that would handle or cram and different things within the coroner's office to handle his operations. So that's why you're not seeing it run through law enforcement. But it's a planned expense. The interest rate on it, because it is a single vehicle, is a little bit higher, it's 3.8%. We do have the option for a 3, 4, and 5-year term on our lease on this. It wasn't planned. It was a planned expenditure. We've been working on this for a couple of years to incorporate it into our budget and into our plans. So that the coroner's vehicle is an older vehicle, but it has relatively low mileage, so it'll be moved into Road and Bridge. And to give you an idea of what it's worth about $2,000. Road and Bridge will pay the general fund $2,000 for that vehicle.
Probably a good thing the coroner's vehicle is low mileage.
Yeah, that might be an indicator.
And again, I know we've done these as a matter of course over the years, and this is generally something that would probably be in consent in the future. It's been budgeted, for this year and approved in December as part of the overall budget. So I personally think we could take action on this now if we get comment from the public or other issues.
Yes. Okay. Matt, you okay?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. Any comments from the public? All right, then I move to, can I entertain a motion to move it? Did you?
Sure. I move that we execute the proposed leases on both the sheriff's vehicles and the coroner's vehicles. And we authorize the county manager to sign these leases.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. You good, Dallas, for that? All right, thank you. Fourth item on the discussion items is the users traffic plan.
Yes, this is our annual certification of our highway users tax fund. And each year we have to update our roadway inventory and provide that documentation to CDOT, to the state for compliance in that program. And it is what it is it's the sale, it's a tax that's applied to gas that's purchased for vehicles. So as you see in your summary memo, it defines how that tax is split up overall and throughout counties. Elbert County, our pro rata share is based on the number of vehicle registrations within the county, and then the number of centerline miles eligible for maintenance. It represents, we're anticipating this year, it represents about $2.8 million in revenue in our road and bridge fund. We have 1,262 total centerline miles of road that are eligible under the HUB program. We have 80.98 miles that are recognized by HUB, that they're maintained by other parties. And we have 84 miles that are recognized by the state or HUB that are not maintained by anybody. We have 460 arterial miles of roadway and 801 miles of local roads that are eligible for this program.
Thank you. Discussion?
No, fine.
Okay. Discussion from the public? No? Move to, entertain a motion to move it to action?
Certainly so moved. I mean, truly the report that was presented is it's an inventory of the roads in the county. And again, as we kind of roll into these meetings, our intent is to bring new items up in discussion. This is one of those items that in the future would likely be just on the consent agenda, but it's the first time we've seen it, so we wanted to bring it up for discussion. But it doesn't look like there's a whole lot of public cry to get deeper into it, so I think we could move forward and accept it as is.
So moved, or I guess I'm second.
Second?
So seconded.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you.
Thank you, Ed. Move on to action items. First one on there is the approval of the minutes from January 17th. That was a special BOCC meeting that day. That wasn't a pre-scheduled one. So the minutes are presented.
Yeah, I move that we dispense with the reading of the minutes and accept them as written.
That's second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Second one, policy regarding Board of County Commissioners meetings. Since it's kind of the criteria, kind of how we function during the meeting.
I'd like just to make a comment on it. That one of the things that the three of us talked about at the last county commissioners meeting, I think it was on the 17th, is that we want to return to courtesy in these meetings, and I think you can already see where we're including the citizens in more discussion, or I didn't say that right. We're providing an opportunity for them to be included in the discussions more, and we're still tidying up some loose ends, and I got to give Chris all the credit for handling this, but to make the meetings more earlier noticed, and I know there's one person in the audience here that feels like we didn't get it done in time, but we're trying, and we will keep working at that. I really think it's all about courtesy, professionalism, and the opportunity for the citizens to participate. I don't know if we need a motion, or I guess we could let Chris talk first, couldn't we?
Okay, let's Chris say a little bit. Thanks, man.
Yeah.
Grant covered it all. Really, we're just trying to provide some predictability to the public on how our meetings work. Right now, we've been in office for all of 15 days. They sent us away immediately for 3 days of training. There's been a couple of weekends, so we've been at this for maybe 10 days in the office. We've held 2 meetings. The first one was really on our second full work day, and now this one 8 days later. We're not meeting our goals, but we haven't approved our policy yet. But after this meeting, we're kind of back on our standing schedule of meetings on the second and fourth Wednesday of each month. There'll be a 2 to 3 week gap between each meeting, and you can expect that agendas and board documents will be available to the public a week prior to the meetings we call. That's our goal. Sometimes things are going to come up and things will change right up to the last minute. We've got to continue the business of government. If something comes up and emerges within a few days of the meeting, we'll deal with it. But we're signing up to do our best to get information to people a week ahead of each meeting. That's what I've got.
Well, I have to thank you both, because I've been at it for 4 months, because I'm the senior person at 4 months, so I want to thank you too, because it's much more organized and apparent to everyone. So thank you. So motion to accept.
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion that we adopt the policy regarding the Board of County Commissioners meetings as presented.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
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 One comment on that, we will post that on the web.
Thank you. Okay, next item is resolution regarding appointments. Brad?
Yeah, we just, as a comment before I make the motion, is that one of the things that we as the commissioners have discussed is that normally all appointments are made in January, and I guess it's regrettable, or it's just part of the learning curve. I'm not sure what the right conversational item is that we want to get more familiar with these different committees, and we want to get more familiar with some of the individuals involved. So we're going to just put off doing the reappointments or appointments until June or July, I think is what we discussed. But right now, we've got a couple of them that we need to do now. And one of them is appointments to the Planning Commission. There's 2 vacancies there right now. One of them will be from District 3, which is my district, and one of them is Chris's district, which is 1, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. So I'm just going to mention mine first, and that is Jim Keane to be placed on the Planning Commission for District 3. Would you like to?
Yeah, and Justin Clausen lives about 6 miles south of Elizabeth, Air Force veteran, raises steer, good person who's really involved in quite a bit in the community. So he was my selection, or my nomination.
What I'd like to do, Danny, if it's all right with you, is just make the motion to make the appointments to the Planning Commission, and the second one we'll make a separate motion for.
That sounds good.
Okay, I move that the individuals identified be placed on the Planning Commission immediately.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 The second item is appointments to the Prairie Development Corporation and the East Central Council of Local Governments. I will be suggesting that I take the place on the Prairie Development because it's out in my area, and then Chris, you were going to participate in the other one.
Yes.
I move that those two appointments be made.
I'll second that.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any discussion on our appointments?
Just as a comment, they gave you a whole page to read, and I
Kind of tear it down a little. No discussion? All right, thank you.
Yeah, I just want, Mr. Chairman, since this was presented as a resolution with all 4 appointments, we probably need to adopt the resolution.
Adopt the resolution, good point. All right.
So is this adopt resolution 17 to determine 2017 appointments to Elbert County Planning Commission, Prairie Development Corporation, and the East Central Council of Local Government.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Dallas, good on that? All right. So on to the, so at this point in time, we're in a formal board meeting now. So what we'll do is we'll move it to a land use hearing, a public hearing on the Rush Creek Wind Farm and Transmission Line. Ooh, did I miss that? I apologize. You're right. Missed one. Final item. We've got selection of the commissioner for oversight of CDS. So,
Okay, last week we had some discussion after an executive session regarding placing a single commissioner to provide day-to-day oversight and management of the CDS department versus what had been established by the previous board, which was the full board managing a department. And as you can see, whenever we do business with the county, it's a publicly noticed meeting. It takes 24 hours, so even making a simple decision regarding that department statutorily requires a meeting such as this. And it's really overkill and not really an efficient use of the county resources. You got staff, you got lights, you got all sorts of things going on. So we had made a motion and that last week that we would select a single commissioner to provide oversight. So I move that management oversight of community development services be transferred from the BOCC as a whole to Commissioner Thayer as an individual.
I'll second that motion. Any discussion?
I'd just like to make a comment, is that I'm looking forward to working with the CDS department. I spent 14 years on the Planning Commission, most of it as chairman. I really look forward to the opportunity to perhaps incorporate a little more planning in our future, and we'll see how it goes. But I appreciate the opportunity.
For an opportunity, we have 2 people who are really skilled in the planning side of things. So it's helpful, Grant, and you too, Chris. So go ahead.
Yeah, and again, I don't see this as our end state, but it's a step getting back towards a more traditional structure that allow the board to step back into its policy budgetary role. But Grant, I do appreciate you taking this on. one of the things that we discussed in this is both Danny and I kind of come from a governmental background. I spent a career in the federal government. Danny at the municipal level. You know, Brad's been managing people in the civilian sector, and there's a different flavor to it. And so I'm sure it's going to be a learning experience for Brad as well. We do have some good folks to lean on, Mountain States Employment Council, to provide advice, and I know that he'll be managing that department the way any department is managed in this county, and same rules apply to all employees, etc. But I think in the near future, we probably have a study session or two just to talk about how this is going and how we continue to transition back to more permanent oversight of the department.
Just following up on what Chris said, one of the things I talked to Kyle, I don't know, Monday I guess it was, and one of the things that we're going to ask her to do is to come before the entire board here at some time in the future, kind of give us an outline of some of her ideas and that type of thing, so that we can, planning is really important, financial, budgeting, develop all of these kind of things, and one of the things I think that you're going to see is a lot more, I want to use the word thinking, but planning going on. I've said enough.
All right. We've got any public discussion on this? Seeing none, we've got a motion on the table, so I'm going to vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. Now I can move to. I missed that item. Pretty important item.
I thought you were scared.
Sorry, Kyle. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take a formal board meeting and we're going to actually move it to a public hearing on the Rush Creek Wind Farm and transmission line. So if I could get a motion from the board to close it and move to a public hearing, please.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Next, I believe, I have a comment. Can Grant, would you?
Yeah. Well, and I see that there's quite a lot of the public here, and I presume that many of you are here to make a public comment with respect to the wind farm application. I guess what I want to say is basically a disclaimer, as Chris and Danny have pointed out, we got sworn in and then they sent us off to commissioner school. And the repetitive comment that received at every one of the lectures we had is that we as a body have two functions. One is quasi-legislative and the other is quasi-judicial. This will be kind of a judicial hearing. Not kind of, but it is. So I just wanted to say a couple of things. Is one of the things that they told us ad nauseum at the school is that when we have a quasi-judicial hearing, we can only address facts. Facts that are presented us by staff and the applicants. We have no discretion to take emotional issues into consideration. So I'm going to read this because I start to stutter if I don't. The first is a quasi-legislative function under which we pass rules and regulations that are to be enforced through quasi-judicial function under which making decisions regarding applications, we must follow all of the rules and regulations that are enforced at the time of the application is heard. We as the board have no discretion. We must follow the rules as promulgated by the state or the county, or the county. If we vote not to approve any application, we must state on the record our reason for the negative vote. So here's my request, is if any of you make public statements that are against the application, I would expect you to tell us why, so that we can take that into consideration in our review of the application. And if you can state an appropriate rule, regulation, or statute, that would be very helpful. This is the first one this board is, application of this nature this board has heard, so we're looking forward to it. Enough speech now.
Good morning, Commissioners. Kyle Fenner, Director of Community and Development Services. And I'm going to make a very generic statement here, too, preceding this application that's going to segue nicely in with what Commissioner Thayer just said. I'm speaking mostly to citizens. I know that you all receive letters, you all receive emails from citizens, our department receives emails from citizens, and I want to let citizens know how our department handles those letters. What's true is when an application is in the process, so to speak, the sooner a citizen can get us a letter with their opinions, their feelings, their facts, the better, of course. If they come in early enough, those letters actually get distributed in the board packets preceding that hearing, whether it's a planning commission hearing or a board of county commissioners hearing. And so your letter is included and involved in that initial review. Now letters continue to come in after that. What our department does is we collect those letters and we will PDF or print them out and we'll distribute them to that body that has got the upcoming hearing. Even though they have already received their packet, don't think that that letter hasn't been distributed to that board. Also, I've noticed that the three of you have been very good at simply forwarding those letters to me, and I understand as in a quasi-judicial hearing, you can expose yourself to any information outside of testimony, which is where we are right now. I appreciate you forwarding all of those, and what I end up doing is collect them and then distribute them as information that all of you are getting, that all of you are equally exposed to as part of your review. Just wanted to let you know that.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, at this time we have a schedule for this process provided for us by CDS, and the schedule is as such. First of all, the staff will present the wind farm presentation. The second part is the applicant then will the wind farm presentation. Then you'll have the staff Excel presentation. Following that will be the applicant for Excel presentation. And then on the fifth component will be the public comment. Okay, so that will be the time when I'll be asking people, everybody who signed up, approximately 14 people here to
Commissioner, can I say something very quickly?
Yes, go ahead.
Since we are making a public record of this and it's being recorded, we have a court reporter here today, I want the record to be very clear. We've referred to it as the wind farm, but in actuality, we're holding a public hearing on an application for the Rush Creek Wind Project, and that includes both a 1041 application and a special use review application. And that is one resolution. And then we're also holding a public hearing on the Rush Creek transmission line, which includes a 1041 application and a special use review application. So I just want to make the record clear on that. The public hearing is on all of those issues.
Okay, Wade, could you say Wade Gately?
Yes,
County Attorney.
Wade Gately, County Attorney, and I just want to make the record clear on that.
Okay, thank you. Can you get that? Okay, so the first step we'll have staff.
Good morning, Commissioners. Ethan Watel, W-A-T-E-L, Senior Planner with Baseline Corporation. Just good to see the chair again, and good to see new faces on the board as well. Thank you for your service to the county. Just so that the public is clear, and so that everyone is clear. Baseline is the contract staff planners for Elbert County, so we are an extension of the county staff. We did review this project in conjunction with county staff and CDS. Just so there's no confusion in the audience. County Attorney Gately took the words out of my mouth. I was going to go over all the four applications, but just so everyone else is clear here. There are four applications, two for the wind farm from Invenergy, wind farm and associated equipment, and two applications for the associated Excel Energy power line from Public Service Company in Colorado. And again, each of those has a special use by review application and a 1041 permit application, otherwise known as site selection and construction, or approval of site selection and construction of an area or activity of state interest, which we can get into more as we go on. Moving through, I'm going to turn it over to Jackson Fagan. He's a planner with baseline as well. He's going to go over the staff side, and then the order you suggested, I think, is the good order to get through these 4 large applications. Thank you. We're here if you have any questions.
Thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners. Jackson Fagan with Baseline Corporation. And first, I'm going to begin with the wind farm project, and specifically the use by special review and the 1041 permit. I'm going to talk about what is proposed through this project, how Community and Development Services has reviewed these applications, as well as what we recommend at this point. The request is for a 1041 permit and use by special review. Per our regulations, the use by special review cannot be approved without prior approval of the 1041 permit. Generally, the proposal is for 200 for facilities, including 210 wind turbine generators and towers, buried and overhead electrical lines, electrical substations and other electrical equipment, operations and maintenance building and facility, up to 4 meteorological towers, communications equipment, as well as laydown, staging, storage yards, and parking areas. Access is proposed by private roads that will be connected to county roads and state highways, and a master road use agreement will be executed with Elbert County prior to construction. Next slide. So a little background, a pre-application meeting was held for both projects on May 10th. 5 community meetings were held in Simla, Lyman, Deer Trail, Stratton, and Kit Carson. The special use review was submitted on June 27th, and the 1041 was submitted on July 20th. After it was submitted, the application was sent on referral to various outside agencies, as well as reviewed internally by Community and Development Services. And eventually, public hearing dates were set. The Planning Commission already reviewed the case on January 3rd, and you're reviewing it today. Next slide. So this shows you generally where the project is located within Elbert County. It's in eastern Elbert County. Next slide. And it is approximately 72,000 acres located between Simla and Lyman, generally south of Highway 24. The zoning on the site is mostly agriculture. The vast majority is agriculturally zoned, with several residential properties nearby. The land use is agricultural with some dispersed single-family residences. The land is generally flat with some rolling terrain, and per the application, no major structures are proposed on slopes over 20% for our regulations. There is some land within the 100-year floodplain, but no facilities or structures are proposed within that floodplain, except where we have approved a floodplain development permit. So this application does not approve specific coordinates of each turbine, but it does approve general, or the applicant has proposed general locations. This is a sheet from their application showing the general proposed location of the wind turbines within the project area. Next slide. So the application proposes that the taller structures, the wind turbines and the meteorological towers, will not be built within certain setbacks from a variety of structures and land uses. The first one is that none of the towers will not be within 2,000 feet of non-participating houses, meaning houses of landowners that have not agreed to be within the project. And they will not be within 1,500 feet of participating houses. Within 1.1 times the tip height of wind turbines from non-participating property lines. 1.1 times the tip height plus the rotor diameter. And we can go over what that exactly means if you have questions later, from high traffic roads like state highways. 1.1 times the tip height from county roads. So one microwave tower is proposed, up to 210 wind turbines and 4 meteorological towers. And they all have associated maximum heights. The microwave tower is up to 500 feet. The wind towers are up to 443 feet, and the meteorological towers are up to 250 feet. Next slide. Up to 2 substations are proposed, and they will be located adjacent to each other at a maximum height of 130 feet. An operations and maintenance building is approved through this application. However, this facility will have to go through the formal site development plan process, meaning they'll have to conform to all our standards normal with that process, including parking, landscaping, access, height limits, etc. So this facility will be reviewed in detail at a further date. Some temporary roads will need to be constructed in order for the large wind turbines to be, or the trucks that carry large wind turbines to be good-shaped turns. Next slide. And those will be temporary roads. After construction, those roads will go away and permanent access points will be used. Next slide. So after the application was submitted to us, we reviewed it and referred it out to outside agencies. We received substantive comments from these agencies, and as well as comments of no objection from other agencies. Next slide. Additionally, many agencies did not respond, provided no response, and we also received unsolicited comments in support of both applications. After the hearing dates were set, the hearing dates were noticed through all the methods that we're required to do, including mailing, newspaper notice, as well as the sunshine list. So in reviewing this application, we looked at the approved Elbert County Master Plan, and we found the application to be in general conformance with the plan. Specifically, the following pertinent items. One, it has adequate buffers with incompatible land uses, which we went over earlier, the setbacks from houses, from roads, from high traffic areas. There's also significant provisions that will minimize the impact to county roads and services, including the master road agreement, and the fact that the major utility uses will be reviewed later. But the major utility uses through the operations and maintenance building will be reviewed at the final site development plan. And we believe that the application or the proposal will preserve agricultural land use as well as rural character. Next slide. We also found that there would be significant economic impacts to landowners, to the county itself, and to job opportunities. There's adequate safety precautions, and significant work has gone into preserving and protecting environmental resources of the county. So in reviewing the 1041 application, we found that the proposal is consistent with all the relevant criteria of the Elbert County guidelines and regulations for areas and activities of state interest, which is our main guiding document in reviewing this application. Which considers generally if there's a need for a project. It also looks at whether or not the applicant looked at a variety of alternatives, which was also done, and considered impacts to public health and safety, to the provision of public services, to the economy, and to the natural environment. So that being said, we found that the proposal is in general conformance with the Elbert County Master Plan. We found that it meets the criteria for approval of a permit application for site selection and construction of a major facility. and that the proposed land uses are compatible with existing allowable land uses in the surrounding area, that it will not result in significant impact to the health, safety, and welfare of the residents and landowners of the surrounding area, and that this application meets the criteria of Elbert County guidelines and regulations for areas and activities of state interest, that we've heard no objections from other governing bodies, and that Planning Commission recommended approval at their January 3rd meeting. Because of all this, we recommend that you approve the Rush Creek Wind Farm 1041 permit application subject to the following conditions. That the 1041 permit will not become effective until all fees are paid, conditions of approval are met, and county required documents are recorded. That record action of all appropriate documentation in condition 1 above is to occur within 180 days after the Board of County Commissioners approval, and approval of the Rush Creek Wind Farm special use review. So, the special use review application is found to be consistent with all criteria of Part 2, Section 17B7, which considers the overall consistency of the project with the master plan, as well as relevant zoning and subdivision regulations. And like the 1041 criteria, considers public health and safety, the provision of public services, the natural environment, and economic impacts. We found that the application is in general conformance with the Elbert County Master Plan, meets the criteria for approval and zoning regulations, and that the subdivision regulations are not applicable to this project. We found that the proposed land uses are compatible with the existing and allowable land uses in the surrounding area, will not result in significant impact to the health, safety, and welfare of the residents and landowners, that this application meets criteria of the Elbert County zoning regulations. We've heard no objections from other governing bodies, and that the Planning Commission recommended approval at their January 3rd meeting. Because of this, Community and Development Services recommends to approve Rush Creek Wind Farm special use review application, subject to the following conditions. That the special use will not become effective until a 1041 permit has been approved, and any documents related to the approval are recorded. That the written restrictions document, which is included in the packets you received, as amended, shall be made a part of the special use site plan document. The special use will not become effective until all fees are paid, conditions of approval are met, and documents recorded. That record action of all appropriate documentation will occur within 180 days of Board of County Commissioners approval. That the application or project owner shall provide site plan exhibits according to the standards of the special use review written restrictions prior to the issuance of building permits. That the applicant or project owner shall gain formal site development plan approval for the operations and maintenance building prior to the issuance of building permits for that building. That the applicant or project owner shall execute a master road use agreement with Elbert County. That the executed master road use agreement shall include measures to mitigate fugitive dust during construction. And the applicant shall obtain access permits for each access point from private access roads, both to Elbert County roads and to state highways. That the Elbert County Road and Bridge Department shall inspect all newly constructed private roads open to non-participating property owners or the general public to ensure they conform to the Elbert County roadway construction standards. The applicant or project owner shall provide a stormwater management plan. The applicant or project owner shall provide a reclamation and noxious weed plan. The applicant or project owner shall provide documentation for any water source used during construction. Shall require, and shall require documentation submitted to Elbert County Community and Development Services. That any development within the 100-year floodplain will require an Elbert County floodplain development permit. That the applicant shall comply with the request of the Elbert County mapper to provide maps of roads to the towers to aid in the assignment of addressing. The site plan shall be amended to show the correct setbacks from non-participating property lines. So up to this point, these are the conditions that were originally recommended to the Planning Commission. At their meeting, after deliberation, they added 2 additional conditions, which are number 17 and 18.
that the applicant shall provide detailed results and a copy of the preliminary bird and bat conservation strategy to Elbert County Community and Development Services prior to construction. There's a typo on the slide, but your resolution should have should say preliminary before the word bird and bat conservation strategy. The application shall agree to contact and make good faith effort to work with Elbert County Communications Authority for the purpose of allowing ECA space on the applicant's towers and equipment. And there's one additional, and a further condition has been recommended between Planning Commission and now. And the last condition is that the applicant shall execute a financial assurance agreement with Elbert County prior to the commencement of construction. So that concludes our presentation. At this time, we'll ask the applicant to present their proposal. Thanks.
Good morning, Commissioners. Thank you very much for allowing us to make a presentation here to you this morning and for considering our application for the Rush Creek Wind Farm. My name is Krista Mann. I'm with Invenergy Wind Development LLC, and I'm here to make the presentation for the wind farm, both for the use by special review and the 1041 application. I also actually would like to take a moment to recognize that the Elbert County staff and contract staff with Baseline, we recognize has done a tremendous amount of work in getting the applications to this point, and we appreciate their efforts very much. So here we've provided a hard copy of each of the PowerPoint to you, so you should each have it. But here for your reference is a table of contents, so if you want to do something, if you want to look up something, that's fine. Next slide, please. So the Rush Creek Wind Farm here in eastern Elbert County is part of a larger Rush Creek Wind project, which actually includes proposed facilities in 5 different counties: Lincoln, Kit Carson, Cheyenne, Elbert, and Arapahoe counties. And so the Rush Creek Wind Project includes 600 megawatts of wind turbines, and so there would be 300 individual wind turbines located in 2 wind farms. The larger of the 2 at 400 megawatts approximately is here in eastern Elbert County proposed. And then the other wind project is the Rush Creek 2 wind farm, which is proposed at approximately 200 megawatts and would be at the intersection of Lincoln, Kit Carson, and Cheyenne counties. And connecting the 2 wind farms to one another and then also to the Xcel Energy existing transmission system in Arapahoe County would be an overhead 345 kilovolt transmission line, approximately 90 miles. That, of course, is the subject of Xcel's applications, which you'll hear from in a moment. So Invenergy has been developing the Rush Creek Wind Project in partnership with Xcel Energy. So currently, Invenergy is the owner of the Rush Creek Wind Farm development assets, including all leases, all permits, all studies, etc. And so the plan is for us to transfer the entire ownership of the project to Xcel this spring, and they'll be the long-term owner-operator of the project. They'll also be the owner during construction. And I must also say that we couldn't ask for a better partner. They've been wonderful to work with, and we appreciate them very much. So upon closing, we'll transfer the ownership. Let's see. One thing that I'd like to point out for the Commission and for members of the public is that Xcel has indicated that the energy generated by this wind project, by Rush Creek, would be the lowest cost wind energy anywhere in the system in Colorado. So we're very proud of that. And then we've also included a couple of points here about the numbers of jobs created and then the amount of emissions that would be offset from other power plants. Actually, on the topic of jobs here, you also have a short stapled packet behind the PowerPoint. It looks like this. And so it includes information about jobs created, tax revenue expected to the county, and the timing of construction activities. Next slide, please. So one of the other things that makes this project really special is the fact that it is proposed to procure the wind turbines from right here in Colorado. So Vestas is the planned turbine supplier for Rush Creek. And its manufacturing facilities are located in Pueblo, Windsor, and Brighton. And here we've shown where those facilities are in a map of the state of Colorado relative to the Rush Creek Wind Farm, which is shown in sort of an orange-brown color. So this project, in addition to meaning local economic development in Elbert County, also means a tremendous increase in manufacturing activity here in Colorado. Next slide, please. So here are some of the economic benefits to the county. So one of the first things to talk about, of course, is property tax revenue. And so the projection is that the wind farm is going to generate approximately $2 million on an annual basis during operations. And included in that $2 million would be approximate $400,000 a year paid to fire protection districts, around $180,000 a year paid to library districts, etc. And then in addition, there would be sales tax payments made during the time of construction. And of course, landowner payments are also a significant form of economic development activity locally. Many of the landowners do live here in the area, and so they'll be receiving royalties from the wind farm. The expectation is that the multiplier effect will reap benefits for Elbert County. Not included here would also be the increase in economic activity during construction, especially with increased traffic at hotels, restaurants, gas stations, hardware stores, etc. Next slide, please. So you've seen some of this from the presentation that Baseline made, but here's a map of the location of the Rush Creek Wind Farm. Of course, it is in eastern Elbert County in the L, as I understand it's referred to, relative to the population centers that you can see in sort of a dark green color. Next slide, please. Here again, just a simple location of the wind farm, drilled down to the project boundary, the permit boundary, shown in the dark gray color. Next slide, please. This is the same map that Mr. Fagan included in his presentation. As he indicated, these turbine locations are proposed and are subject to change. We're actually in final engineering of the project now, and so we're in the process of locking down each of those turbine locations, and we'll be providing all of those final locations to Elbert County in the building permit applications, which are forthcoming here in the near future. But as Mr. Fagan indicated, all of the wind turbines that are sited would conform to the setback standards that we have proposed to Elbert County, unless a waiver is sought and granted from the subject landowner, homeowner, etc. Next slide, please. So here's an overview of the history of development. The development of this wind farm started back in 2010 when the original land was leased. Wind resource measurements have been taking place since 2010 with temporary vent towers or meteorological towers. We also began the on-site environmental surveys back in 2010. I'll go into more detail about those in a little bit. The environmental surveys also continue to date, as does wind resource measurement collection. We filed applications with the FAA, the Federal Aviation Administration, and the NTIA, the National Telecommunications and Information Administration, in 2016. And the size, of course, here is approximately 400 megawatts. What's listed in the written restrictions document that I believe is in your packets is up to 210 wind turbines. So at 2 megawatts each, that would actually work out to 420 megawatts. The plan is around 400 megawatts for the final determination to be made prior to building permit applications. And then the model of the wind turbines, its Vestas machine, is the V110, 2 megawatts each. Next slide, please. This information was included in the permit application, but we provided information, a brochure from Vestas describing the turbine. But in style and in form, it is the same as the others that are already operating in the area. It's a 3-bladed upwind white tubular tower turbine. Next slide, please. Here's a photograph of a typical substation. Mr. Fagan included a diagram of the typical substation, which of course was included in our site plan packet. This is from a different wind farm location, but the substations here would be typical to what you would expect in other areas. Next slide, please. So nearly the entire project area is agricultural in use. And here we've shown a breakdown of the percentage of land that is cultivated, about 18%, grazed, about 65%, and then about 17% in CRP, which we'll go to in a moment. But we've also shown representative photographs of a grazed area and a cultivated area in the wind project. Next slide, please. So these are the setback standards that we proposed. These were referred to in the application. There's actually one update made since the application, which is reflected here. Elbert County does not have pro forma setback standards for wind farms, so we proposed standards that we found to be consistent with responsible wind farm development from other counties. We've also, in the bottom portion of the table, included the setback standards that we've used between various raptor nests and wind turbines, and these are taken from the Colorado Parks and Wildlife guidelines. Yes, sir.
Could you just run through those briefly? I'm sure the audience can't see the numbers on that slide.
Yes, sir. My apologies if these are difficult to read. So starting at the top, from a residence, we proposed 1,500 feet from a participating residence, which means from a landowner who is a homeowner who's also signed a lease with the wind farm, and then 2,000 feet from non-participating residences. And from a non-participating property line, we're proposing 1.1 times the tip height. And the tip height is the height of the wind turbine when the blade is in its highest vertical position. So 1.1 times that. And I should also clarify here what a non-participating property line means here. Because there are many landowners with many different parcels included in the wind farm area, the non-participating property line means a boundary between one who has signed a lease and one who has not signed a lease. It does not apply to two landowners who have both signed a lease, so an internal parcel. We propose 1.1 times the hub height plus rotor diameter from a high traffic road, so US 24. For a county road, we propose 1.1 times the tip height. For above ground third party owned transmission lines, again 1.5 times the hub height plus rotor diameter distance. From railroads, same thing. And from public buildings, we propose 2,000 feet, but this one is not relevant because there aren't any wind farm. And then down in the second portion of the table, we go into the raptor nest setbacks from turbines. So a half mile for active bald eagle nests, another half mile for active golden eagle nests, a quarter mile for active osprey nests, a half a mile for active ferruginous hawk nests, a third of a mile for active red-tailed hawk nests, a quarter mile for active Swainson's hawk nests, a half mile for active peregrine falcon nests, half mile for active prairie falcon nests, half mile for active northern goshawk nests, 150 feet from active burrowing owl nests, and a quarter mile from any active but unknown raptor nests.
Thank you. And the tip height's about 450 feet.
In the written restrictions document, we proposed a maximum allowable tip height of 444 feet. Next slide, please. So basically, I covered this in the presentation, but we conducted 5 open houses for this wind project, one actually in each of the 5 counties that would host some portion of the facilities. And so here we hosted actually the first kickoff open house in Simla back on May 25th. Over 1,000 people were invited to those open houses, and announcements were printed in these local papers, which are listed here. They were well attended, and I think the feedback we received was really positive. I think they were all really good forums for people to ask questions, speak directly to project representatives, and I must also commend Excel on their initiative to do these. No one required these of Excel. They were their instigation, and I think it speaks to their willingness to be transparent with the public and to be proactive in communicating. Next slide, please. In addition to the announcements posted in various newspapers for the open houses, other articles have been run in these newspapers listed here, again, getting the word out about the wind farm so that if anyone has any questions, they know about it. Next slide, please. So these are a list of the environmental surveys that have been conducted for the Rush Creek Wind Farm, and I'll go through these. These are roughly in chronological order. There's some overlap here. The first was a critical issues analysis conducted several years ago, back in 2010. This is a report providing information to the applicant to the wind farm owner about the types of environmental resources that would need to be studied. Then going on, we did a tier 1 and tier 2 site characterization where we map out all the various habitat types in the project area for different species. And next we did a 4-season avian survey with 100-meter survey points, so that's where a biologist stands at a certain location repeatedly and documents all of the avian species that they identify within that certain distance. And then we went into from there the avian use survey, where we did 800 meter point count locations. And we're nearing the end of the second year of that survey. We've done 2 seasons of raptor nest surveys in 2015 and 2016. Those are done in the spring. We've also recently completed the bat acoustic monitoring survey that was done in 2016. And then finally we did both a desktop and a field mapping an analysis of aquatic resources. So that's mapping of the wetlands in the wind farm. Next slide, please. So here in this slide we've included a list or a table of some of the avian species that we often discuss in wind farms, or with wind farms. And the distances from the nearest point in the wind farm to those various wildlife resources. So for example, the nearest greater prairie chicken habitat or lek that we're aware of is over 50 miles away, and then we go through the rest. Next slide, please. And then here, similarly, we've shown the 2 wind farms, Rush Creek 1 and 2, relative to the nearest bald eagle roosting locations that are known at a desktop level. So as you can see, there's a tremendous distance. Next slide, please. In addition to all of the wildlife and environmental surveys, we're in the process of a 3-phase archaeological and cultural review. So the first stage is that we hired a qualified archaeologist to do a desktop review of all archaeological and cultural resources that were known in the State Historic Preservation Office, or SHPO database. And if any one of the things were identified, we simply sited our facilities away from those things so that we would not disturb them. The second stage was recently completed, where the same archaeologist took the proposed layout, or a draft of the proposed layout, and said, based on his knowledge of the resource at the site, this is where, if there were going to be artifacts found, this is where they'd likely be, and he did field surveys. And again, additional items were uncovered, or were identified, and so we've either sited away from those, or worked with the landowner to preserve the artifact as appropriate. And then the third stage would be during construction. If something is identified, construction in that area would stop, a report would be made to the SHPO, and depending on the nature of what is found, an additional report may be made. But the whole idea is to avoid disturbance to that resource at all. Next slide, please. So we touched on the Conservation Reserve Program, or CRP, a little bit ago. Approximately 17% is of the project area is in CRP. This is actually built into all of our land lease agreements with the private landowners. So our expectation is that all or nearly all of the parcels that are in CRP now will be able to remain in CRP with just those few acres that are actually impacted by the wind farm taken out. So if the entire area impact is 1 or 2%, then something like 1 or 2% would come out of CRP. But we are working to facilitate communications between the landowners and the FSA office regarding this. For any acres that do come out, whether it's just a couple of percent or even the entire parcel, the land leases stipulate that the project makes the landowner whole, so they don't see any financial loss from their CRP contracts. Next slide, please. Decommissioning is also a common topic that's discussed for wind farms. Here we've included each of the 2 examples from the site land leases with the private landowners, stipulating that the wind farm is entirely responsible for the decommissioning of the wind farm at the end of its useful life. And so I won't read these unless you'd like for me to.
Brief summary, I assume land reclamation is put back as was.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So it stipulates that we remove all above ground facilities and below ground down to a certain depth, recover it with soil, blend in the terrain so that it's as close as possible to what there was before. We revegetate with a seed mix that's appropriate to that area. So in addition to this, we've also voluntarily committed to doing a preliminary decommissioning plan and submitting that to the county prior to construction. As a follow-up, there are actually a couple of provisions that we read to the Planning Commission, and I'd like to read to you here as well. So, excuse me, the project agrees to notify the county in the event of a sale of the project, which is extraordinarily unlikely, but I suppose not impossible. And so if that ever were to happen, we would notify, Excel would notify the county. The project will provide a pre-construction decommissioning plan, as we just discussed, similar to the ones that we have already provided to Lincoln, Carson, and Cheyenne counties. The project will provide an update to the decommissioning plan in year 15 of operations. And in addition, Excel will provide the Colorado PUC, or the Public Utilities Commission, with an update of the decommissioning costs every 5 years as part of the rest of its generation fleet. And of course, this is a public document, so the county is welcome to track it, comment on it, etc. We talked about the leases in place with the landowners, which also make clear that it's the project's responsibility to do this. And then finally, a CPCN, or a Certificate of Public Convenience and Necessity, would be required in order for the project owner, in order for Excel to sell or to decommission the project. And so in the event of a sale, decommissioning costs would be included in that consideration, so the Colorado PUC will be governing that. Finally, there's one additional stipulation which was reflected in proposed condition number 19 of the staff report, which is for the project to negotiate a decommissioning assurance agreement between the project and the county prior to construction. And Mr. Gately and I had a conversation about that yesterday. So we'll be doing that in the weeks to come. Next slide, please. So building permits, of course, prior to the right to any wind turbines, we would apply for and obtain building permits. And in those building permits, in the applications, we'll provide the precise location of all proposed wind turbines so that the county can confirm that we have conformed to all of the setback standards we proposed. Next slide, please. I think this is near the end of the presentation, but transportation is one of the more common topics also discussed for wind projects because wind turbine components are quite large, and so the trucks to deliver them to the site also are large. So here, it's a little tricky to see, but you can see winds are at the top, Bright just below it, and then down at the bottom of the map you see Pueblo. Those are the manufacturing locations for Vestas, and shown in red are the preliminary transportation routes expected to be used to get into each of the 2 wind farm areas. And those would be surveyed and studied by a qualified transportation team prior to construction, prior to deliveries. Well, not prior to construction, but prior to deliveries of wind turbines. And then from there, next slide please. So here's a map of the county roads in Elbert County. You can see the ones that would be relevant for the Rush Creek 1 wind farm. Next slide please. So we plan to execute a road use agreement with Elbert County prior to construction. We've already begun the negotiation process for that. Most recently, we met with Mr. Gately and then Sean O'Kern on January 9th to go through that. Here are some of the common provisions that would be included in that transportation agreement, the road use agreement, which I'll be glad to go through in greater detail if you like, but in the interest of time, I may just go through. Next page. So here is the status of the Rush Creek Wind Farm in terms of approvals from the various government entities that had some jurisdiction of the wind farm. So as I mentioned, there were 5 counties, and so here we've provided the dates on which the other 4 counties have already issued their approval. In addition, the Colorado PUC issued its approval for Excel to buy this wind farm and build it back in September. And as you've already been made aware, January 3rd, the Elbert County Planning Commission voted 3-0 to recommend approval of both the wind farm and the transmission line. So we were very grateful to them for that recommendation. And that brings us here to today. And finally, next please. I've included my full contact information, so if anyone in the audience has any questions or comments following this and would like to get in touch with us, we certainly welcome that, and this is how to get in touch with me. Thank you very much, Commissioners.
Thank you.
Hello again. Hello again, Jackson Fagan, Baseline Corporation. At this point, I'm going to go over the transmission line project. Similar to the wind farm, this project applied for the special use review and the 1041 permit, the land use processes. And Similarly, the special use review must be approved, next slide, prior to the approval of the 1041. The basics of the request are for a 41-mile-long transmission line within a 150-foot wide right-of-way. The structures proposed are of two types. One is an H-frame transmission structure between 80 and 130 feet tall, and 3-pole angle transmission structures between 80 and 140 feet tall. Next slide. A little background, the pre-application meeting was held in conjunction with the other project on May 10th. 5 community meetings were held. The application was submitted simultaneously for both projects, or for both land use processes on August 18th. The project was sent to outside agencies, and as well as being reviewed internally by Community and Development Services. Public hearing dates were set. Next slide. This shows the general location of the transmission line, and the red line is not the exact width of the right-of-way. It's just here to show exactly where it is in the county. Next slide. The site is zoned completely agricultural. The land use is agricultural with some dispersed agricultural structures. The topography is generally flat with some rolling terrain, and there is some land within the 100-year floodplain, but no facilities are proposed within that floodplain except where permitted through a floodplain development permit. Next slide. The typical transmission structures are the 3-pole, which you see on the left, or make sure that's correct. Yeah, the 3-pole angle structure on the left that can be up to 140 feet, and the H-frame, which you see on the right, which is 130 feet tall, the maximum. The application was referred out to other agencies, and we received substantive comments from the agencies on the left, as well as some comments of no objection from the agencies on the right. Next slide. We also did not receive responses from the agencies in the left column, and we've received unsolicited comments in support of the project from 5 agencies or organizations on the right-hand side. The application, or the public hearing was noticed by mail, by newspaper, and to those people on the sunshine list. The project was reviewed against the approved Elbert County Master Plan and was found to be in general compliance. Specifically in terms of visual impacts, we found that the alternatives were studied and that the existing, or the proposed route most adequately parallels existing transmission lines, reducing visual impacts, and avoids homes and ridgelines to the greatest extent possible. The impact, or the application contains provisions that will minimize the impact of county roads and services. Like the wind farm, the master road use agreement will be executed with Elbert County, and no extension of other utilities will be necessary. Of course, the project is a utility project, but we'll need no water, no sewer, nothing of that nature. There are significant provisions to protect the environment, including wildlife and natural areas. So in evaluating the 1041 application, we found that the proposal is consistent with all criteria, all relevant criteria, we evaluated that there is actually a need for the project, that considerable alternatives were evaluated, and the alternative that was selected is the most adequate, and that impacts to public health and safety, the provision of public services, the economy, and the natural environment will be adequately and generally protected. We found that the proposal is in general conformance with the Elbert County Master Plan, that it meets the criteria for approval of a permit application for site selection and construction of a major facility of a public utility, that the proposed land uses are compatible with existing and allowable land uses in the surrounding area, that the proposed land uses will not result in significant impact to the health, safety, and welfare of the residents and landowners, that the application meets the criteria of the Elbert County guidelines and regulations for areas and activities of state interest, that we heard no objections from other governing bodies, and the Planning Commission previously recommended approval. For these reasons, Community and Development Services recommends to approve the Rush Creek Transmission Line permit 1041 permit application subject to the following conditions. That the 1041 permit will not become effective until all fees are paid, the conditions of approval are met, and county required documents are recorded. That record action of all appropriate documentation in condition 1 above is to occur within 180 days after the Board of County Commissioners' approval, and approval of the Rush Creek Wind Farm special use review is approved. In evaluating the special use review, we found that the proposal is generally consistent with all criteria of Part 2, Section 17B7, which considers the project's consistency with the master plan as well as zoning and subdivision regulations, and like the 1041, is adequately protects impacts to public health and safety, the provision of public services, the economy, and the natural environment. We found that the proposal is in general conformance with the master plan, meets the criteria for approval in the zoning regulations, and that the subdivision regulations are not applicable to this project at this time. And the proposed land uses are compatible with existing allowable land uses in the surrounding area, that the project will not result in significant impact to the health, safety, and welfare of the residents and landowners, that this application meets criteria, next slide, of the Elbert County zoning regulations, that we found no objections from other governing bodies, and that Planning Commission previously recommended approval. For these reasons, Community and Development Services recommends to approve the Rush Creek Transmission Line, subject to the following conditions. The special use will not become effective until a 1041 permit has been approved. The special use will not become effective until all fees are paid, conditions of approval are met, and documents recorded. Record action of all appropriate documentation will occur within 180 days of the Board of County Commissioners' approval. The applicant shall execute a master road use agreement with Elbert County prior to the commencement of construction. The executed master road use agreement shall include measures to mitigate fugitive dust during construction. The applicant shall obtain access permits for each access point from private access roads to Elbert County roads and to state highways, as the case may be. The applicant shall provide an approved Colorado State Stormwater Pollution Prevention Plan prior to the commencement of construction. The applicant shall provide a reclamation and noxious weed plan prior to the commencement of construction. The applicant shall provide a legal description prepared by a professional land surveyor prior to the commencement of construction. The applicant shall provide an executed tree replacement agreement approved by the CSU Extension Office prior to the commencement of construction. That the applicant shall provide detailed results of pre-construction raptor nests with box and burrowing owl surveys to Colorado Parks and Wildlife, as well as summary results of the same surveys to Elbert County Community and Development Services prior to construction. Construction activities shall not occur, and permanent structures shall not be constructed within the wildlife buffers recommended by Colorado Parks and Wildlife in their document, recommended buffer zones and seasonal restrictions for Colorado raptors that are listed below. I won't read out the exact buffer distances at this point, but next slide, please. That if a burrowing owl is observed in the vicinity of the prairie dog town during transmission line construction activity will be suspended temporarily to determine if there is an active nest within 150 feet of construction activities. Human activities and earth-moving activities shall not occur within 150 feet of active burrowing owl nests between March 15th and October 31st. If a burrowing owl is observed in an area other than a prairie dog town, construction shall be suspended until the bird moves 150 feet outside of the transmission line right away. So that sounds like a very, very specific condition, and it is, and that came from Colorado Parks and Wildlife recommendations. So, a letter from Agate Fire Protection District acknowledging that based on their communication with Public Service Company of Colorado, the proposed transmission line project will be in compliance with their fire code and meets their request for information and access to the temporary laydown yards. Any development in the 100-year floodplain will require an Elbert County floodplain development permit. And the site plan documents will be revised to reflect the correct zoning districts. And the last, so up to this point, these are conditions that were recommended to the Planning Commission and after deliberation approved by the plan, or recommended to you by the Planning Commission. The last condition is a condition that has been written in and recommended after, or between the Planning Commission and now. So that the applicant shall execute a development agreement with Elbert County prior to the commencement of construction. And at this point, unless you have any questions, I'll turn it over to the applicant.
Ethan Waddell with Baseline. I have one clarification to make on condition number 10, which stated it had to do with the executing a tree replacement agreement. After the Planning Commission meeting, Excel reached out to the CSU Extension and found that there was not a staff person there that was able to accurately help with the tree replacement program. So they had a suggested change, and we agree with that change, that this tree replacement program should be approved by the Colorado State Forest Office in County. It's a simple change, but I just wanted to make sure that's on the record. The CSU Extension should be switched out to the State Forest condition. Thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm Susan Ennis, Manager of Siting and Land Rights with Excel. I'm based at the Excel Energy office in Denver, 1800 Larimer Street, downtown Denver. Last but not least, we have our presentation. And as soon as we get our slides going, we'll get started on that. I assume many of you are familiar with Excel Energy. We're also known locally as Public Service Company of Colorado, and we've been in the state for over 100 years in some form or another. We have about 3,700 employees across the state. Over 2,000 contractors are employed by the company here in Colorado. We serve 165 different communities, over 1.4 million electric customers, 1.3 million gas customers, and our annual revenues in Colorado are over $4 billion. We do pride ourselves on being a good neighbor, and part of the facts we have here on this slide, our company overview, are about our local investment in the communities where we live and work. Our foundation community investment last year was nearly $4 million across the state of Colorado. Our employees volunteered their time to local nonprofit and community organizations in an amount of almost $250,000. We provide over $15 million in low-income energy assistance and economic development funding of about $750,000. Next slide.
It's going on mine.
One of the other things we're very proud of is that the American Wind Energy Association has recognized Excel Energy as the country's #1 wind energy provider for the past 12 years in a row. So we have more wind energy on our system across the United States than any of the other utilities. Here in Colorado, we have approximately 2,600 megawatts of wind on our system. That represents about 20% of our generation fleet here in Colorado. On the map here, we've got a number of the existing wind projects across the state from which we purchase power. And as Krista mentioned in her presentation on the wind farm portion of today's projects you're hearing about, we do intend to become the long-term owner-operator of the wind farm, although this particular segment of the hearing this morning is on the transmission line that we will own and operate. And Excel Energy is a large owner of transmission, over 21,000 miles of electric transmission and 73,000 miles of distribution wires here in Colorado. Next slide. The transmission line will connect the Rush Creek Wind Farm to the Missile Site substation. That's an existing facility in Arapahoe County. Total length of the transmission line across that distance is approximately 90 miles. and will be paralleling an existing transmission line owned and operated by NextEra Energy that goes across northern Elbert County. The total distance within Elbert County is approximately 41 miles for a total of 746 acres, and our right-of-way is 150 feet. Our permit application also includes temporary staging yards, temporary access roads to the transmission structure locations, and we expect, with approval from the county, that we would commence construction in spring 2017, and project commissioning would happen by the end of 2018. Just a photograph to tell you what the transmission line will look like. The typical, kind of along the straightaways, would be an H-frame structure. And then when we make turns or right angles, we have the angle structure. That's the photo on the left. These structures are approximately 100 feet tall. Depending on final engineering, they'll be between 80 and 130 feet across the train. They're about 27 feet wide at the base, made of a self-weathering steel. And as I mentioned, the right-of-way is a total of 150 feet, basically 75 feet on either side of the center line of the transmission line. Next slide. We went through an extensive planning process for this Rush Creek transmission line project. We looked at the wind farm locations and the interconnection point to bring that energy into our backbone system. We created a broad study area for the potential transmission line routes across a 3-county area. We looked at land use and environmental resources, came up with a number of 1-mile wide study corridors, reviewed opportunities and constraints, went out and did field work to double check all the data we had, and we did extensive coordination with a number of agencies, including Colorado Parks and Wildlife, U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, the State Historic Preservation Office. And again, a shout out to the staff here at Elbert County. We had multiple meetings over the past several months, and they've been terrific to work with. We also had a public involvement process. You heard about the open house meetings. We met with individual landowners, anybody who reached out to learn more about the project. We went through an opportunity and constraints analysis of several alternative routes, and then selected the preferred route that's in our application for you today. Next slide. I think at this point you've seen a lot of maps and you're very familiar with where we're talking about. But here's one more, so just the transmission line highlighted. You'll see on the lower right side the Rush Creek 2 portion of the wind farm, and then the Rush Creek 1 portion of the wind farm that's in Elbert County. Our pink transmission line on this map connects those 2 wind farms up into the missile site substation that's up in Arapahoe County. Next slide. And we're zooming in, yet another map. A little more focused area here. Next slide. And then finally here, the portion of the project that you're concerned about here in Elbert County. Public outreach on projects like this is really important for Xcel Energy, and the input and feedback we receive during these public meetings is really important to our planning process. We reached out to over 2,000 landowners and 63 stakeholders across the region. We published notice in 4 local newspapers, we did direct mailings, and we held 5 public house meetings, including in the county here in Simla on May 25th. Over 135 people came out to the meeting in Simla, and across all 5 of those open house meetings, we had 235 attendees. We developed a project website, included handouts, many of which are on the back table here in the room today. And as I mentioned, we've done individual meetings with landowners. We've received phone calls, emails, lots of information about the project. Next slide. And that brings us today to the hearing and our consistency with the Elbert County land use regulations. As the staff report mentioned, we're in general conformance with the county master plan. Our proposal meets the 24 individual criteria for the approval of a permit application for site selection and construction of a major facility of a public utility. That's the 1041 permit. Next slide. On the special use review side of the permit applications we have before you, we do meet all 7 criteria in the county code for the approval of a special use review permit. We comply with the master plan, the zoning regulations, we're compatible with surrounding land uses. The transmission line will not adversely impact the provision of public services. We've done extensive analysis to ensure we don't adversely impact the environment. The transmission line itself will not generate any traffic congestion. We've got concerns for landscaping and buffering and screening, and generally will not be detrimental to the health, safety, or welfare of the present or future inhabitants of the county. Next slide. Kept that nice and short. We've listened to a lot of presentations. We really appreciate your consideration of the project, and we'll be happy to take any questions that you might have for us. Thank you very much.
I'm not sure who I should ask this question of. I would like to say that the presentations are very informative and useful. The one thing, though, that I would really like somebody to address, and again, I'm not sure who to ask the question to, is the economic impact on the county. This single sheet that we have here is nice, but it doesn't tell me anything that would be useful from a budgeting point of view.
Thank you for the question, sir. Krista Mann from Energy Wind. So one of the most important numbers from the county's budgeting perspective probably is the top line item, the property tax payments that we're expecting to make to Elbert County, approximately $2 million per year for the life of the wind farm. And that number is determined based on state statute formulas. We've provided information about how it's calculated. I believe it's on the last page of the packet that we left with you. It's not a negotiated assessment rate. Sorry, it's not in the PowerPoint, sorry, it's on the 4-page. Yes, sir, that one. So this is information about how it is calculated as determined by state statute. But as I mentioned, this is not something we'll be negotiating either with the county or with the state because it is already predetermined under a formula.
I appreciate that it's not negotiated, but again, what I'm trying to get at is in following years or even through this next year, we've got Gallagher and all sorts of things going on and trying to figure out how this would impact us on a long-term basis. The $2 million, how is that split up? Does it go to different pots or does it just go to the general fund or where does it? What I hoped for and I've requested from our planning department was that you provide us a third-party report that would just kind of give us an education on how to plan. And just the $2 million number, I'm excited about it, but it doesn't tell me anything.
Sure. The state assesses those taxes. The $2 million would be paid by the project every year as long as it's operating. So over the 25-year life of the project, the county as a whole would receive approximately $2 million, approximately that figure in taxes. There are subcategories for all of the school districts, the fire protection districts, the library districts.
Those are in addition to this, or are
those
they
are
part of this?
Those are included in that sum total figure. We would be happy to have Xcel Energy's tax person meet with you to talk about that. We've also provided contact information for the State Department of Property Taxation, who could spell out exactly the estimated figures. The figures that were included in Krista's slide deck there, we ran through the state spreadsheet calculator. So we use the same information that they have. But if you're looking for detailed projections for how much one school district would get versus another school district, I think the county would be, the state would be the folks to talk to about that.
In other words, you don't have a document that outlines that.
The summary we've provided there is intended to address that. But since the state assesses Xcel, we pay the taxes. It's really between the state and the county to talk about how those are divided up among the taxation districts within inside the county.
Okay. My understanding on that, though, is the eventual tax payments are based on the amount of power generated annually.
The information that we forwarded about how the state calculates the property tax on wind farms, it was set forward in House Bill 06-1275. The tax factor is just intended to keep the revenue stream relatively steady over a projected 20-year life. Essentially what they do is take some numbers and assumptions for a gas-powered power plant, apply those to the wind farm, and they have this detailed spreadsheet that includes a 2% annual escalation factor, and they can come up with numbers by year over the life of the project for how much tax would be generated.
Okay. Just one related, I guess. I mean, I was reading it here. It's then applied to the reported kilowatt hours generated. I get that. It's potentially 420 megawatts. You run a lot of these plants. What do you generally generate as a percentage of the maximum capacity per year? I'm just curious. Do you generally get 90% of what of max capacity, 20%? Where is that?
The actual...
I mean, I know you're at the mercy of the winds. But.
Yeah, the way I understand the tax calculation is done, they take the total megawatt generating capacity, the nameplate value capacity of the wind farm. In this case, that's 600 megawatts for the entire facility. They assume that's a generating facility with gas. It's not based on the wind farm's actual production, it's based on these assumptions created by the statute related to the gas equivalent facility.
Yeah, I think we'll just need to sit down at another time. It says reported kilowatts generated in the previous year, so it doesn't sound like it's named based on the maximum capacity, but what is actually generated.
I should have started by saying I'm not a tax expert.
No, that's
but we
fine.
know tax.
I'm not trying to get into an argument. I'm just trying to understand.
A question I have, based on your 2 million a year,
Yeah.
you have a number of these farms that are out there, that are operating. Is that a good comparison? Are you giving a statement that's pretty comparable than other areas of producing?
To be fair, most of those other wind farms are owned and operated by other companies. They're not owned and operated by Xcel. So this is a little bit new and different, and that's partially why I don't have a great answer for you today.
Okay.
This is a little bit new and different for us to own a facility like this large, to be taxed this way. This is different than how most of our other existing facilities are taxed that we own and operate.
Okay. All right.
So do you get the tax money in arrears, or do you get it on an ongoing basis? Again, I'm just trying to think of how this would overlay in our budgeting for the county. And, you know, if I don't get this money for 2 years, I'm just trying to make a point, is then that would affect, or if I was going to get it every month, and that might affect our thinking also.
I think those details should probably best come from the State Department of Property Taxation. The way I understand it is that it would work very similarly to the way I pay property taxes on my home. But I'd encourage the county to have your tax assessor run through those specific details with the state tax folks.
We've asked them, and they're like me. They want to know, how does this work? As it, you know, I think we got 40 or 50 of them in the county right now, and I went down and got their tax sheet on it, and the amount of money we're getting now is quite a lot less than this. But the whole point is that it's spread over an array of items, and again, because this is located differently in all these kind of things. The weakness of your whole presentation is we don't, it's not a technical problem, is that we as county leaders, I guess, need to be able to project numbers, and this really doesn't give us a vehicle to do that.
I'm not sure where we move forward. I understand you have questions about this. There is a significant amount of property tax revenue generated by the project. We've given you a summary calculation there, as well as some examples of some of the sub-districts within the county and an estimated amount per year that they would receive. I'm not sure how much more detail we can provide you today along those lines.
Sir, as a follow-up, Kristen, and Energy Wind, as a follow-up, perhaps we could coordinate a meeting between the county's tax staff, Xcel's tax staff, to try to give you better planning information so that you can understand the time of year.
That would be something I would like very much, and coordinate it through our county manager, however he wants to do it. But I would like to, in the end, have kind of a spreadsheet that says, Grant, here's how you can project numbers.
Yes, sir.
And the one thing that's also missing here is what kind of numbers for the county might be generated during the construction phase.
Yes, sir. So we'd be glad to agree to the follow-up meeting between county staff and Excel's tax staff to provide you with a breakdown of the time of year when you can expect tax payments to be made. And if you'd like to, if I may make a suggestion to include that as a condition of approval, we can do that here shortly following, sir.
I appreciate your understanding.
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much.
Just clarification and question. My understanding on both projects, you've acquired all the land needed through negotiation, nothing's being taken, or you're not using any powers of eminent domain. Could you talk in general of what the lease terms are? And we talked a bit about reclamation, but roadways, maintenance, making them whole, and CRP. Just what's the array of issues that are covered in those leases?
Yes, sir. So as you indicated, all of the land that is inside the wind farm area and the permit area, the 71,871 acres or so, is all covered by a signed lease agreement between the wind farm and the private landowner, and it is all private land. So the basic structure of those agreements gives us a period of several years for the development of the wind farm to do, for example, what we're doing here right now. And then once development is complete and the wind farm goes into construction, then it triggers a much longer operations period for the wind farm to operate and produce electricity. The landowner is paid according to a different structure during the development term than it is during operations. As you would expect during operations, they're paid based on the number of wind turbines on their property and how much generation they produce, etc.
Okay. And the length of the expected lifespan of the project is 25 years?
Yes, sir. The design life of the wind turbines is 25 years.
And leases are transferable for the landowner?
Yes, sir. That's right. So if the landowner sells the property or an heir inherits it, for example, then the lease would transfer to that new landowner. Similarly, when the wind farm ownership transfers to Excel, all of the rights and obligations covered by the land leases are transferred to Excel too. Yes, sir.
Just to answer the same question for the transmission line, Fiasco has right-of-way easements along the transmission line route with the private landowners, sort of similar terms and conditions. Those are in perpetuity. Those are not limited to any particular term.
Thank you.
Kyle Fenner, Community CBS Director. I want to add something in the research that we did on the economics. And this predated your election, everything. We were also trying to understand it. Maybe we want to add an amendment or some language to your condition of approval. We met with internal county staff and the analyst who is now working in the assessor's department. And our ability to do these sorts of projections based on all of the state criteria is incredibly limited. He actually stated that there were so many variations that he wouldn't even do a projection. It is that complex and it is that unrelated to county taxation. So if we want to actually have a condition of approval, I would add two elements. One is that it includes the state people, and I don't know who those people are off the top of my head, that Department of Property Taxation, in that, and that the results of that meeting be satisfactory to this board in some capacity, whatever that is. Those would be my recommendations.
I'd say that sounds good. Please start drafting some language so we know what we're doing or what we're discussing.
So it's stated specifically.
I know we'd received quite a few letters from folks out of the area with minimal rights. This is, I guess, covers both as well. I know 71,000 acres, but only about 2% covered. I don't see any restriction of access to any subsurface rights at all in this. I know it was a concern from people out of areas had limited information that we're notified through the 1041 process.
Sure. For both the wind farm and the transmission line, we did have conversations with mineral owners. There's a required notification process anytime there's a surface use, land use application. So we did notify all the mineral owners in the project area. And as you summarized, don't expect there to be any impacts.
It doesn't impair the value of the mineral rights.
No, it does not.
That's all you got. Grant, you got anything?
No, I think it's time for public comment.
We've got approximately 14 people signed up here in this list, and I can call each one of them up. However, I can have a show of hands on how many people plan on making comments. Could we please? So it looks like I might have more than 14. So since what I'll do is start with a list, and you come up, and then we'll kind of form a line if you could. First one is Secretary Ashcraft. And then the next one will be Mr. Harris, Bill Harris, and then Jeanette Hocus. And I apologize if I don't say too much correctly.
Can't pronounce the name correctly. Thank you very much. Distinguished Commissioners of Elbert County, Mr. Kyle Fenner, Community Development Services, Baseline Corporation, Energy representatives, Excel Energy executives, fellow citizens of Elbert County, and equally important, my fellow farmer and rancher and landowners of Elbert County, Colorado. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to address this hearing today. As you know, my name is Terry Ashcraft. I'm accompanied today with my son Isaac. We are third and fourth generation farm and ranch owners and operators in southeastern Elbert County. My grandfather homesteaded a portion of our current farm and ranch in 1906. So you might say we have a vested interest in Elbert County and the state of Colorado. And I've got Excel beat by 10 years. I think it's important for you to know where I come from before I talk about the future, because the project that I see, I've watched one grow from 200 towers just north of Lyman, Colorado, to over 1,000. And I've seen my farmer and rancher friends up north of Lyman. It's been a boon for them. New equipment, the economic advantages are ongoing to this point. And it's remarkable. I love the project and I'm strictly for it. I could stand up here and tell you the many benefits of the wind energy project, but that would be redundant. I feel this project's benefits far outweigh any downside concerns. This green project gives small farmers and ranchers like ours the opportunity to continue to do what we love the most. The consensus of the many people of Elbert County that I've talked with and all over the region generally agree that this green energy project for 200 turbines, known as Phase 1 Elbert County, is a no-brainer. I want to share with everyone something today that they may or may not know. Invenergy has taken a bold, futuristic look pertaining to this project. They have teamed up with adjoining landowners that are just south of the project, Phase 1. In Elbert County, and own leases on enough property to erect another 100 plus turbines. With that being said, I challenge this board to quickly and with open arms agree to move forward with this project. It is imperative to give the proper signal to XL and any like them and the confidence about the future acceptance of what I call Phase 1, an A project, and others to come. We know that the current 200 turbine projects is a very good deal. If we add another 100 turbines to existing infrastructure at less cost, that would be a very, very good deal. In closing, I just want to point out, only a few years ago, Elbert County had a moratorium against fracking. During that period, I saw no one riding their bikes to work. I'm also aware this is a whole new board, gentlemen. They did, however, get it right. This green energy project will allow our commissioners to go to those constituents, and it should make them happy, along with all of the citizens of Elbert County. I call this a win-win situation. I am confident this Board of Commissioners will get this right as well. I will end with one thought. If 200 is good, what would 300 be? Maybe a win-win-win, or maybe a very, very, very good deal. Thank you for your time and consideration in this matter. I do have one thought, if I may. In Lincoln County, they have went from 200 turbines to 1,000. On the economic impact and the tax for structuring future spending, just a suggestion, talk to those commissioners. They have a track record. They know from the start of the 200 turbines to the 500 phase of it, exactly the revenues that come in. They should be similar. That's just a suggestion. Thank you very much. Thank Xcel Energy, Denver Energy, and everybody here today.
Mr. Ashcraft, thank you. Next one is Mr. Harris. And at this time, if we could set the clock, please. We're trying to keep our comments to 3 minutes. If we could, please, post that.
What if I do a project and I only get 3 minutes?
Yeah, and all on a row.
Okay.
Hold on, Bill. Are you ready there?
Yes.
Okay. All right, Bill, go ahead.
Hi, Bill Harris, 808 Caribou, Sinwell, Colorado. I think the wind farm is a win-win proposition. The only thing that I'm concerned about is if you get the money, how are you going to divide it up between the northwest section of the county that takes most of the money from the general fund anyway, and give it to us out here in the red light district. You leave Callahan, you see nothing but red lights until you get to Lyman, and then it's red lights all the way to Bennett, points north. So, what can you do for those of us who live down in that area? I know that's got to be taken a look at, but we don't need nothing really from the county, just to be left alone. But the roads that I drive in that area down there, I don't have a problem with them. But if I'm going to drive on a blacktop road to come here, I've got to go to Elbert Road, or I've got to go to Lyman, and then go over to 86. We don't have a blacktop road north and south. That helps us out in our area. So, widen 9-mile road to 6 lanes. Put it in there so we can really get some travel time on that. But generally speaking, no. I'm concerned about how the money is spent and how it's going to be utilized in our area.
It sounds to me like you're asking the sheriff to put a car on 9-mile road.
He doesn't have enough cars or enough people. But that's one way to pay for it. I help pay for the car Bennett Road that way. The time that Xcel's put into this project and everything, and yeah, the ground is still usable around those towers. I talked to other ranchers and farmers and so forth. They can still plant around them and everything like that. And you know, the birds and the bees and the bats. That's important. We kill plenty of them just driving here every day, especially in the summertime when the bugs come out. So that's not a big issue. My concern is how the money is going to be separated for our end of the county as to the northwest one. So appreciate your work on this, gentlemen. Keep up a good job.
Thank you, Bill. Next one I have is Jeanette Coaches.
Hi there, Commissioners Wilcox, Richardson, and Thayer. Congratulations to Commissioner Richardson and Thayer on your election. We look forward to your service for our as our new commissioners. But my name is Jeanette Coaches. I'm from Madison and also Eastern Elbert County. I serve currently as the chairman of the board for Rocky Mountain Farmers Union. We're a general farm organization which represents more than 20,000 members, and we support renewable energy as a part of our policy. We feel this project would benefit not only the landowners of Elbert County, but the state of Colorado. But more importantly, I'm a private citizen of Elbert County. My husband and I are landowners in the wind development area. And we've been there for more than 40 years. Maybe not quite as long as Terry. But right now, the economic outlook for agriculture is struggling, and this would be an opportunity to boost the economy. It will provide a financial benefit to agriculture in our struggling county as well as to Colorado. As we heard in the presentation, the turbines are going to be built at the Vestas plants in Windsor, Brighton, and Pueblo, so that'll be a benefit to the state. While only a few Elbert County residents will directly benefit from the development, the region will indirectly benefit through increased property tax revenues to careers and jobs for the people in the county. And during the time the project is in progress and after completion, it will still be an economic boon to both the state and the county. So we're pleased to see that the Elbert County Commission did approve the applications for the wind farm and transmission lines. So Rocky Mountain Farmers Union and my husband and I urge you to carefully consider the request and approve permitting needed to complete the project that will have a tremendous impact on Elbert County and the state of Colorado. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Larry Durber.
Turner with the D.
Turner with a D. Thank you.
Commissioners, I'm Larry Turner. You are in receipt of an email from me about this subject. Before I get into it, I'd just like to say that as much communication as Elbert Energy, I can never pronounce it, and XL did, I never heard anything from anybody until Elbert County contacted me about a month and a half, 2 months ago. In any case, I'm bringing a knife to a gunfight. And I'm objecting to only a part of this today, this project. And that part is the ridge line of the South Highway 24. There's a 24/7 aesthetic issue that applies to that. The energy company wants to put wind towers along that ridge for physical reasons. It makes sense meteorologically, topographically, and every other way. But the aesthetic of southeastern Colorado suffers because of that. The possible ramifications are that that aesthetic is in conflict with the Elbert County Master Plan. Understanding that the master plan is only a guideline, it's still there, and people have and they use it for the decision as to whether to come to our rural part of the world. The future implications of any change to the master plan to allow this development to go forward are, I think, there are three ways to address it. One is, well, let me go on to explain the impact to the ridge line and as it applies to the master plan. All development with a small d, and utility corridors shall be directed away from significant ridge lines, bases of area zones, etc., that are determined to be environmentally or visually sensitive. And the ridge line south of Highway 24 is 2 miles away or thereabouts, and it is the horizon for anybody living there or traveling through there. The Board of Commissioners can approach it in 3 different ways, I feel, probably more. Postpone the development until such time as the towers along that ridge line can be moved elsewhere or eliminated. Or you can ignore the master plan and allow development as proposed, risking possible litigation. Anybody that has used the master plan in their decision to move here, or I'm up. Okay, what's the third one? My objection.
What is the third one?
What's it?
The third one?
Third comment, sir.
To amend the master plan before anything takes place. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Durden, thank you. Next is Alan Moore. And then following that is Kevin Turek.
Three. I want to thank the commissioners for listening to the input. I will benefit probably, but just to let you know where I'm coming from. There's some towers on the land. But it appears to me that there are some downsides, but it appears to me the upside is more. And as you talked about before, this hearing was mostly to determine if Invenergy and XL have met the requirements according to all your stuff here. And, you know, I believe they have after listening to their presentation. I briefly talked about the tax issue. It doesn't seem like that is part of the requirement for approval. It seems to me that you said it was a quasi-judicial, I believe, hearing. I believe they presented the evidence that should okay this project. 30 seconds.
Good morning, Commissioners. Kevin Freak, 87321 East County Road 42 Deer Trail. I understand that's in Arapahoe County, but we own land in Elbert and Arapahoe counties. In 2011, we were approached by Elbert Energy for the first power line that traversed our property. We were totally against it, my wife and I and our family. We contemplated our decision a long time before we agreed to let them come through the property with the power line. We came to that decision by something my grandmother told me a long time ago. She was an immigrant to the United States, and she told me that she said, the most beautiful thing I ever seen was that power line coming to my house. And I'll never forget that. So we did negotiate with Next Energy and allowed them to bring the power line across our property. We didn't like it, and we still don't really care for it. It's kind of an eyesore. We didn't get the turbines, we got the umbilical cord. So anyhow, when we were brought aware in April that XL Energy was going to follow the course of the first power line, we were a bit intimidated because Next Energy is, I'm sure, XL Energy is like the 800-pound gorilla in the room. They have combination powers to bring their power line across. So we were a bit intimidated. We thought that would limit our negotiation process, and to our surprise, XL put a great team together. We negotiated straightforward with complete transparency, and we agreed to go into the negotiations. My neighbor and I were nominated to represent 9 landowners, representing approximately 30 miles of transmission line. We did that over the course of about 4.5 to 5 months. We negotiated the deal for all landowners at the time we reached our agreement, 2 landowners decided to opt out and go on their own for whatever reasons, I'm not sure. But the balance of us stayed together. Everybody's happy, and we encourage you guys to support this program. We think it's important to the county. And as far as the tax issue, I understand. I don't mean to make light of your concerns. They're going to tax the hell out of you. Trust me. Thanks.
Thank you. Next is Mr. Wilson, Steve Wilson.
Steve Wilson, Superintendent of Sandy Schools. The Rush Creek 1 wind towers are almost entirely within our school district. Our interest is for our roads and the safety for our bus riders, student drivers, staff, and parents that use the roads in the southern part of the county. XL has done a great job keeping us in the loop and communicating with us. XL has assured us of their support for the safety of our patrons. We would ask the county that if you approve this project, that a healthy amount of the revenue be used to improve the roads for the people who live within the shadows of these windmills. The last few years we have been canceling school due to muddy roads, buses with students sliding off the roads, buses with students stuck in the mud, needing someone to pull them out. One bus a couple of years ago sunk to the axle in the middle of a county road in the mud. Similar road and bridge guys have been doing a good job plowing snow and helping our buses out in the snow, but the roads themselves need improvements. With just rain, we have canceled several days of school each of the last few years, including canceling school on the last day of school in May each of the last 2 years. Several years ago, this was not the case. We didn't even think about canceling because of muddy roads. Within the $1 billion, with this $1 billion project, again, we would ask that a healthy amount of the new revenue be used to improve the roads for those people who live within the shadows of the wind towers. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Mr. Ken Moore. And then following him is Doug Schminke.
Hi, my name is Ken Moore. I live south of Simla. I didn't quite live there as long as, well, I lived there longer than Terry and his family. I think our family came in 1918. I agree with the gentleman. I guess first I should say benefit financially from this. We signed a contract with Invenergy. They've been great to work with. Definitely some changes. I think the aesthetic value, you can't argue that. And I'll possibly be looking out I look out my front window and see Callahan, and I look out my kitchen window and see Lyman, so I guess I can be in the middle. I mean, it will change the aesthetics. I think the benefits outweigh the negatives as we considered that. So I would just ask the commissioners to support the project. Also, to add on to what Terry said, I think visiting with the Lincoln County commissioners would be quite beneficial for our county. Also, I'll argue with Steve, he doesn't like the muds in the road, but the farmers definitely like those periods of time. So we'll try to compromise on that. Thanks for your time.
Next, Doug Schminke.
I have to make a confession. I'm not Doug Schminke, but Doug is sitting right there. We're both co-workers. I'm here and we're here representing Colorado Interstate Gas. A long time corporate citizen of Elbert County. Let me help you with my last name, Z-I-E-S-K-E. For those who don't understand what CIG does or Colorado Interstate Gas does, we are, since 1928, since there's been a lot of bragging about how long we've been in this state and county, we own and operate a high-pressure natural gas transmission pipeline. And our pipeline is subject to the rules and regulations of the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission and the Department of Transportation. What that really means is that we would like Colorado Interstate Gas would like to do its due diligence to maintain, first of all, public safety, safety of our customers, safety of our employees and contractors to operate on natural gas transmission lines. The wind project and the transmission do encroach or conflict with our existing facilities and right-of-ways. So at this point, we're not opposed at all to these projects. However, we would like to have specific plans, drawings, maps, surveys, land documents to complete our encroachment review, which is then, again, subject to our federal regulatory requirements. So, as an aside, and former manager of the property tax for Colorado Interstate Gas years ago, I do recommend to the commissioners to do engage with your county assessors, the department, State Department of Revenue. XL Energy has tremendous staff, and they'll be able to provide you specific data as to how the dollars will trickle down to the various taxing jurisdictions within the county. So,
Your first comments puzzle me. It seems like it's a corporate legal issue of the relationship between PUC and CIG. What does the county have to do with that?
I don't understand.
I don't understand your comment either. What are you asking of us with respect to your relationship with?
We're just asking. We're not aware. We were not aware up until recently of the projects. And the projects do encroach upon our existing right-of-ways and our facilities.
That's not our problem. That's your problem.
That's correct. And we are addressing the problem. And some of the problems that will come up with electrical transmission lines is that it can affect the metal integrity of our pipelines underground. It's called AC mitigation.
I understand. I spent quite a bit of my early engineering years doing just that stuff.
Okay. Well, thank you for your time.
Thank you. I have Ed Hendricks. Have that name, or Jared Hendrick? Ted? Okay, thank you, Ed. Ted Hendricks, does that help?
They agree with everybody that it's a good deal. They want to.
Okay. All right. Thank you, and I apologize for getting the name wrong. Thank you, Ed. Next one we have Bob Harlow. Mr. Harlow and those who are coming up here to speak after, could you please, if you could speak into the mic so that everybody could hear.
Can you hear me okay?
How about that, sir? You guys?
I'm going to be brief. I think we've heard most of the arguments that can be made for and against this project. My name is Bob Harlow. I live in Lyman, Colorado. I am a farmer and landowner in the path of this project and will benefit from it. I believe the upsides of the project far outweigh any negative. I urge the commission to find in favor of the project with one stipulation that the sensitivities mentioned are addressed. And that would be about the extent of my comments on it. But, I believe it's a good deal for the community, the state, and renewable energy as a whole.
Thank you, Mr. Harlow. Next is Kip Parker.
Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you all for being here. My name is Kip Parker.
My address is 19173 Road 193, Lyman. We live in the area of the proposed wind farm. I'm a businessman, farmer, and landowner. I too will be involved, hopefully in a positive way, financially. But let me just say that I am strongly in favor of this project, not just for our county, but for all 5 counties in eastern Colorado. This is a $930 million project. Those kinds of things just don't happen very often. And by little farm boy logic, about 2/3 of those dollars are all going to end up right here in Elbert County. So I sure think that's a good thing. In terms of Invenergy and Excel, they have been very much above board. I've been to 8 or 10 meetings, I suppose. I see them to be accountable and work with the counties and all of the agencies in a very appropriate manner. I live 55 miles southeast of Kyle, 3 miles west of the eastern county line. And I just have a quick story. I live next to the Pleasant Plains Church, if any of you know where that is. But a couple weeks ago, there were 2 cars that drove past our house. Only one of them was the mailman, and we didn't know who that other guy was. The point of that is, we would love to have some economic development out in our end of the world. 100,000 acres, or so, 70-some thousand acres, 100 square miles. That speaks pretty boldly about the number of people in that area who support it. Are there a few bad things? Maybe, but all in all, the good outweighs the bad. So I would just encourage your favorable consideration. And then one final thing unrelated, it's sure nice to have some camaraderie with the Board of County Commissioners. Thank you.
All right, 2 more names. Mr. Tim Brown.
You're a hard act to follow. My name is Tim Brown. I represent the Colorado Farm Bureau here, the largest farm organization in Colorado. I represent about 25,000 people. Our policy states that we are all for green energy or renewable energy, so we would also ask that you would, Colorado Farm Bureau asks you would give us a yes on this project. Taking that off, I'm also a landowner in Lincoln County and Elbert County. And we do quite a vast part of this project is in our Elbert County ground. And we have not leased, but it's not my right to tell someone who has leased that they can't put something on their piece of property. So we're still, as far as the family farm, all for this project. And with that, gentlemen, congratulations on your positions. Good luck with that, and we look forward to working with you again. Thank you.
Mr. Brown, thank you. Gary Lauer.
Gary Lauer, 12405 County Road 134 Kiowa. And good morning, commissioners, and I'll second what was said previous. Nice to see the cooperating group around the tables. Not taking a position really either one way or the other on this project, but I do have a couple things I would like to know and facts that I think should be considered in this project. Number one, how much taxpayer subsidy is involved in funding this project? And secondly, I would like to know historical, statistical information on the value of land in view of the wind projects, night and day, and really not involving those that have leases tied to the tower, but those that have land that are in bird's eye view of these towers. And I bring that up because we heard this morning of $2 million worth of additional taxes brought to the county. A possible downside is if you have a significant impact on the value of land that is in view of these towers, what is that going to do to the tax base for property in Elbert County? So leave it to that. If anybody here can answer those questions, I'd be happy to hear them. And I do think that they should be considered. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Gary. Okay, at this point, that's all the people who are on the list. Is there anybody else who would like to make public comment? I see a hand back there.
Chris Ernecki. I represent 7 landowners, approximately 11,000 acres, not in the Rush Creek area footprint, which is east of that area, and we speak in favor of this project, not only for the economic development, but for those of us who farm and ranch. It is another crash crop that would help us when renovations provide. A couple other issues quickly on infrastructure. Someone was mentioning about the roads, and I think if you look north of Lyman or east of Callahan, and these roads that were used in transportation of these products to build wind farms, those road bases are much more solid than they ever have been. And I do agree, Steve, that those that may not be in the routes, it doesn't need the routes for transportation, could still use the improvement, but that's more of a county issue. The other part of infrastructure is people are saying in 25 years they expect to apply for this. But once these companies have put the infrastructure in, the transmission lines, potential is much further than 25 years. So that's my bit on it. Just to Gary, I can talk a bit about the land values. And without Passaic County, there's a lot more dissension, a lot more discussion about the transmission line with east of Callahan, or west of Callahan. And El Paso County, we did do a study on land values prior and after the construction of it, and they said there's no significant change. So you can check with El Paso County on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Anybody else?
I move to close public comment.
Not public comment.
Hold on.
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, if we may, Energy would like to make a quick closing comment.
Kyle Fenners, Director of CBS. What I would like to ask is any citizen who had and or read from a prepared statement, we would love to have a copy of that for the record. If they could just bring it up here, we wrote as crazily as we could, but if they'd be willing to share it with us, we'd like that.
Yes, sir.
I'd like to say one thing. Would Mr. Kyle Fitter please stand up? Did she leave?
No, I'm right.
Please stand up. I apologize to you, ma'am. It's not Mr. Fitter.
All right, then at this time, I think what we'll do is I'll entertain a motion to close public comment.
I move that we close public comment with the understanding that the applicant will be given an opportunity to do the closing statement as soon as we adjourn, come back, whatever the right word is.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, we'll take a 5-minute break, and then upon return, we'll have the applicant have a closing statement.
Mike.